I want to talk about the connections essay. I know in the work folder, there are probably some class lectures linked to it, and they would be worth looking at or listening to, and just to give you some ideas as to how to do this. Now, I want you to think of this more of as a technique you are learning, the technique of creatively combining two, two things or aspects or concepts or thoughts or whatever that seem to be disconnected. You're able to show your reader, poof, they're connected in some way. And the connection can't be obvious. Why bother writing about something that's obvious? Your readership is already just going to give you that. So you have to spend time with these articles. On the surface, they're very easy to read, right? But think about them. You got to let them roll around in your head for a couple of days, so that you really do think, man, what really was behind that? Why would anybody do this? Or why would anybody let someone do this to them? What's really driving this? And try to probe it. Okay. And if you learn how to do that, if you learn how to give it time and to wait for that surprising connection to happen, but also to prep it by thinking about it, forcing yourself to think about it, you will have a tool that might help you produce material later on for a bigger essay, for your research, whatever. Now, I'll give you a quick example, okay? Let's work with homelessness, because I think that was one of the essays was about that. I know that, But um, what if I were to tell you that homelessness and humor are connected? Is that obvious to you? Is that something that you would just automatically agree with if you were in a room and I was addressing the room of, say, 100 people? How many people in that room would go, "Oh yeah, yeah, I know that. That's connected." No, if I were to ask that room, what emotions, what you know, what do you connect with? What do you connect with homelessness? I think the room might say things like apathy, despair, sadness, that sort of stuff. But humor, how, right? I can hear the room saying, I'm not ready to agree or disagree. I need you to explain. I need you to unpack. How are these things connected? That's exactly the type of argument I want you to be building. Not some sort of controversial discussion or debate, but an argument in the sense of here's the observation and here's how it's not obvious, and here are the reasons that I have for believing this. So how are humor and homelessness connected? I think they're connected because if you go online to do a Google image search on homeless signs, you're going to find a lot of them have jokes on them. Okay. Now you're going to find a fair collection of serious signs as well, but a lot of these signs are going to be humorous signs. And now at this point, I'm kind of moving my focus, right? I'm not thinking about homelessness as a thing in itself. I'm thinking now as to how we represent it to ourselves by taking pictures of it and putting those pictures online. Of course, the one who's taking the picture probably is not the one standing on the corner with the sign. So I'm now looking at our passerby reactions to the chasm of someone who's so poor they're willing to stand on the sidewalk with a sign on it, holding a sign, versus the one who has somewhere to go with some means to get there. So I'm not on the corner. Why aren't I on the corner? Do I feel guilty about that? Maybe I'll take a picture of the humorous sign, put it up into my digital sphere, social network, whatever, and in that way, set it up so that I can put a digital glass between me and the person on the corner. I can distance myself. I can laugh at it, right? And I feel like laughing at it is a defense mechanism. And I think we do this more often than we admit. So I think there is a paper to be written about homelessness and humor, and it needs to be unpacked. It needs to be explained, which is why I think it would be a good topic to work with. It's not automatically obvious. And when you start researching humor, when you start researching gallows humor or black humor, When you start researching the guilt that's associated with riches, or at least with those that have a home when they're living in areas that are devastated and many, many people don't have homes, the guilt that's associated with perhaps an unfair slice of the resources, I think there's a paper to be written here, and I'll be using Creative Connection to do it. So what about the essay at hand, the two articles that you need to connect with a point of connection? So you have article out here about the homeless being turned into Wi-Fi hotspots, and then you have the mailbox dilemma. How do you find another entity that connects to both together? Maybe an entity that's in the middle and deep, because there are some obvious connections right there. Both of these articles are dealing about communication. Both of them are dealing about businesses that are trying to produce revenue. So those are some obvious points of connection. Both are about technology, about how technology shifts. And at one point, the physical mail was very useful. Now, digital mail is the thing, and as technology shifts, people are affected. So these are some obvious points of connection. What might be one that goes deeper? And I'll just throw this out to you as a suggestion. If I were writing this paper, I would maybe take this approach. But there are other elements besides the one I'm going to share with you. Voyeurism. To what extent, with these articles, are you, the reader, given a window to look into somebody's house, if you will, to see the pain, to see the trap that some workers in America find themselves in, and this is a very real situation. Some are so disenfranchised that they may as well they are homeless. Others are just on the line and living paycheck to paycheck in a very demanding but unrewarding job. And yet, we as consumers don't really think too much about that. We sort of look at, someone at that festival who is using a homeless person to send an email. We sort of look at that and say, shame on you, right? Yet we pay only 50 cents or 20, I remember when it was only 25 cents, the stamp, to send a piece of paper from, California to New York. And is that viable? Is that sustainable? Why don't we pay more? Because we're not maybe putting in enough money to help that man or that lady, that woman, that person who is part of the process live or have job security in a meaningful way. So we are partakers of this as well, right? But it doesn't feel like we are because we're sitting in a classroom or we're sitting on a couch and we're reading this through mediation, through a screen at a distance. There are plenty of removes, and we let those removes happen and exist so that we are shielded from the tension, from the weight, from the burden, from the guilt. Yet we want to read about the homeless, that are, standing in the sun for I don't know how many hours. So I think voyeurism is a deeper point of connection. And I think that would work because I can imagine in a room of 100 people saying, hey, these two articles are connected by voyeurism. I can imagine quite a few people in that room saying, time out. How do you explain that? So I think that I have something worth writing about because it calls for explanation. The technique is connection. So try it, work hard at it. If you can't think of something, you can use what I said, imitate and grow so that you can originate down the line. And don't forget that this is a technique also that is open for you to use in your research papers. You can form or frame a whole paper about a creative connection if it's substantial enough, or you could use it for part of your paper, and some of the other parts could employ other techniques. So work hard at this, do a good job, and remember to benefit benefit from it down the line.